City of Portage City Council meeting. Will you please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pastor Parnell, could you lead us in prayer?
Shall we pray? Our Heavenly Father, we come before you this evening with thankful hearts for the mercy and grace that we find in you each and every day. And Father, also for the gift of your Son. We ask, Father, for your blessing upon this meeting this evening. We ask for wisdom, that each and every decision be made, Father, that would benefit the citizens of the great city of Portage. I ask for your blessings. I ask for your guidance. We also pray tonight, Father, for our firefighters, our police officers, first responders, and our troops. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Liz, can we do the roll call?
Absolutely. Councilman Alvarez.
Here.
Councilwoman Weidenbach.
Here.
Councilwoman Hurst.
Here.
Councilman Parnell.
Here.
Councilwoman Vasquez.
Here.
Councilwoman Ambler.
Here.
Councilman Zilli.
Here.
All right. We have communications, correspondence, announcements from the mayor. A lot of our department heads are not here today because they are at National Night Out. If you guys haven't had the chance to go, maybe we can get this meeting done fast enough to go, but we'll see. As far as things are, I am going to also switch over to the minutes, which I skipped for some reason. But other than National Night Out, I've got nothing else to say. So did anybody have a chance to take a look at the minutes? And are there any questions, comments, or motions regarding the minutes from our July 7th meeting?
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second?
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And that passed. We have clerk treasurer's report. Liz?
I just want to report that we're doing our closing tomorrow with the State Board of Accounts for our audit. It's at 10:30 in the morning, so any council member that would like to attend, I think you all got an invite from them, plus from me and also from Leanne, I believe. There was a little confusion. It was supposed to be today, but they didn't have their comments finished and approved by the state, so they backed it up one day. It looks like we might get written up on two. I had to write up 2 caps, and that's it, compared to 7 last year, so we're going in the right direction as a city. We also are going to, I have a prep meeting for our budget on Thursday with the DLGF, and we should have some facts and figures for you, Austin, by next week.
That'll be perfect. We're
And-
definitely in budget swing, and we're excited for it.
And starting next week on the 10th through the 14th, my office is going to be in-depth training for our new computer program, and we will be from 8 to 4:30 every day. Someone in the office, if not all the office, will be in the training. So bear with us. If it takes a while for us to answer the phone. If it takes a while we'll have someone at the front desk to take the payments and that, but bear with us, and I'm asking the public to bear with us on that. And that's it.
That'll get us to petitions, remonstrances, and public input. If you'd like to come up and speak, please come up, and I think we have paper to write your name. You can introduce yourself, and we'll give you up to 2 minutes. Come on up. Don't worry, I haven't started the clock. We're all good.
Thank you.
And there's some extra seats up front if anybody wants to have a seat.
You're okay, you're okay.
Do you see somebody standing? I don't see anybody when I'm just kidding, I see, but no, like you're seeing like a ghost, that'd be kind of funny, like, you know.
My name is Clay Lemke. I'm here once again to talk about flock cameras. Last month, Chief Candiano had addressed a few of my concerns, mostly regarding the federal access to flock cameras, and he listed several agencies that would seemingly have no issue, but he failed to specify whether or not ICE or DHS, whether or not they did have access. Only reason that concerns me is because across the country, from Atlanta to California, to Mountain View, California, PD has been working with ICE despite non-cooperation policies. In 2015, California state law banned federal and out-of-state access to ALPRs. However, in 2024, federal agencies were granted access by flock cameras, or to flock cameras. Additionally, to quote Chief Candiano, he stated technology is growing, which is making it easier for criminals. According to an independent researcher, Ben Jordan, he had purchased a flock camera and showed just how easily it is for the public or criminals to access these devices, whether it's a camera, ALPR, listening device, what have you. And the bigger issue beyond that is that the use of cameras does not end with law enforcement. Flock employees do have access themselves, which has led to several issues on its own. He also stated that we don't have the budget, and he doesn't think we are interested in any of those, referring to more advanced technology than the ALPRs at this time. Once again, the concern rests in where is the line to be drawn that we will not cross, whether we have the budget or not. We got to stop asking could we and start asking should we. Beyond that, he did not get my contact information. I am more than happy to provide contact information to Chief Candiano. If not, I'm sure you can use flock cameras to track me down. So, thank you.
Hey, and as you're going back, it looks like we're aiming for, we are tentatively working on September 14th for our flock camera information night. I think Melissa might have been able to let you know that too.
Yes.
I made a note of what you asked about, and I'll see if we can get that information together too.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I'm here first of all, my name's Deborah Rick, and I live in Portage. I'm here regarding the BB gun issue. In March, a neighbor of mine set up a target right on my property line that adjoins with his, and he was shooting the BB gun into my yard. So I called the police, and I was shocked that there's no parameters regarding BB guns. They told me he can shoot all day and all night into my yard. I have a problem with this. This is a safety issue. In fact, it's pretty much a problem all over the U.S. Children lose their eyes or vision in one eye from BB guns at the rate of 2,000 to 2,300 injuries a year in this country. And that statistic is from the American Academy of Ophthalmologists. And I only have vision in one eye, and I don't want to lose my vision. And I think this is a horrid situation. There should be some type of parameters on that. And I would ask all of you, would you like for me to come and shoot a BB gun in your yard, just randomly, any time of day or night? Something should be done. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to come?
I can get hers because she said her name, but can you please sign in?
We're not trying to be terrible sticklers on it, but we got to be a little bit sticklery. Now watch, he's going to accidentally say your name when he goes up. No.
Shall I begin? I wanted to talk about the BB gun thing as well. I think I said my piece last week, but I don't think I expressed concerns for the complainant. So if somebody's shooting a BB gun irresponsibly, can cause damage to property or shoot an eye out, like the Christmas story. But banning the shooting of BB guns in the city of Portage, I think, is that's going too far. The issue is there a safety concern? And if there's a safety concern, isn't there any kind of ordinance that prohibits something like that? Or if they shoot a window out, isn't that an issue? Like property damage, vandalism, something like that? Or causing bodily harm? So these things, I think, are already pretty much covered. But in this, what we just heard, somebody had put up a target, probably a paper target, I guess, I don't know, shoots through the paper. Obviously, BB's not going to be stopped by a piece of paper. Maybe a phone book, old phone book. But yeah, just banning it completely, I think is not being compassionate, and it's not being concerned with safety. I think it's just being lazy. There should be something that can be done about it that doesn't ban me from shooting a BB gun. I know how to shoot a BB gun, and I know how to do it safely, and a lot of people do. Sure, you might have the rotten kid next door that's just, willy-nilly shooting, and I have experienced that myself when I was a kid 2 doors down, just shooting. Actually hit a buddy of mine right in the chest.
And I apologize, we're actually at the time.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Hearing none, I'll close the public input. Oh, well, I'm sorry, come on up.
Hi, my name is Jessica Zabo. I am a resident. I have lots of things I could talk about, but one thing I would like to discuss or ask outwardly, do we have a running total of how much tax money Portage has lost out on with our current data center at Ameriplex? According to what I saw, they get anywhere from $750,000 per year in tax abatement. So I was just wondering how much that is that we have lost in not receiving any taxes, since there is a tax abatement for our current. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I think we can get it fact-checked on our end. I think the main thing that I can say right off the bat is that tax loss in Indiana can be a little bit complicated from a resident perspective because we have a levy growth quotient. So it's not as if you get 5 more homes and they're all equal. Let's say you have some cookie cutter homes all equal. It's not as if they're all paying the tax same number as the house that was there before, if they're all the same. But what it can do is it can bring the tax levy, well, it can bring the rate down or bring it up. The other trick, I think, with the Ameriplex that I want to make sure we get the accurate info on is it's inside of our allocation area, often popularly called a TIF district. So the money that normally goes to property taxes in that district doesn't go directly to the city, it goes to the redevelopment commission. Now, that can be a politically debatable topic as well, but Liz, if you'd like to say, go ahead. I want to be careful that we get the right info there.
We're not losing any tax dollars. All they're doing is saving right now. It's a 10-year tax abatement, and it reduces every year by 10%. So the first year they got 100%, the second year 90%, all the way down to the 10-year. So we're not losing any money, we're just not getting extra money for the improvements on the land, but we're probably getting more money, and I'm not positive, than we would for an empty lot the second year.
So there's no running total that we haven't received thus far. I believe it's $750K per year.
That would be something that we would talk to Mr. Dan Bowditch about because he would be our main guy for that. But as said, the Ameriplex is in the allocation area, so it's not the civil city that gets any money. The other complication is that when you have property that's at a tax levy that goes to the civil city, we're limited by Indiana law how much revenue we can get every year. Sometimes it's 4% growth, sometimes 3% growth. Sometimes the state has made it 0% growth. The reason why that matters, though, is that when you have a new investment in your city, assuming that it's not in a TIF district, oftentimes the city doesn't get any new money that it was already going to get. It just brings the property tax rate down on everyone else. So we're happy to get the exact answer to your question, but it is a little bit more complicated than just take a percentage and multiply it by the value of the site. But we will get the accurate information. I think the best guy to ask is Dan Bowditch. No problem. All right, anyone else? Oh, come on up.
Thank you. I just woke up, so I'm not quite together here, but I'm a Portage resident, and there's a gully on Airport Road right past Mendoa. I don't know if you're familiar with that. Anybody?
Amanda, by any chance?
You're on Airport Road and you're going north.
Yes, it's
Yes.
between Monda and Rock.
Sure thing. I paused it. I didn't mean to
That's
interrupt
right. No,
you.
that's right. But it's about 15 foot deep, and I think it's an accident just waiting to happen. So I think the best thing would be to put a piece of guardrail up there. And if anybody's gone by there, maybe they have the same, looking at it as I am. So just thought I'd bring that up.
Yeah, I can speak to
Colin,
this.
you go ahead, yeah.
We've been looking at this for, I don't know, since I've been on the council. The issue, a guardrail can't get deep enough because of how steep it is, which is issue number one. I know that. We were able to get it enclosed where the new development came in. As far as I know, the last I heard, the issue with the rest of it is an Army Corps of Engineers issue because it is a controlled waterway. And it requires us finding 3 times the amount of space to dedicate back to wetlands. But I haven't heard an update in about a year.
Yeah, so I've met with the Army Corps of Engineers twice in the last 2 years. By met, I mean once in person and then once in a virtual call. They are aware that it's not really the kind of protected wetland that we would, I don't mean to say that we would value, but it is legally a protected wetland, and so mitigating it is very expensive. One of the things, and Mr. Cherry, I don't believe is here. Oh, Tom, you are there. Sorry, you're blending in great. What happened? Yeah.
I should have just said Tom can speak to this.
That was his
But
objective.
What I would say is that we considered trying to put in a certain kind of fill that we'd be able to put in, like a certain type of large boulders that would allow the water to still pass through, but would break kind of a fall. To put it really simply, the Corps told us we couldn't do that either. So the cost of mitigating it is probably about $300,000. And not to say we can put a number on, keeping people safe. I believe we asked the police chief, who was also here. He wasn't here when you were speaking, I'm sorry, but he just walked in. Chief, how many accidents have we had in there so far in the last 5 years? Do we have a record?
Only one I can remember was probably 10 or 15 years ago, and it was a police car actually responding to a call ring license sirens, and I think that's the only one that I can remember probably in the last 10 to 15 years.
So to put it all together, what I've asked really is for one of two things to happen. Either we continue to work with the Army Corps of Engineers to lessen what's needed to fix it, because Colin's 100% correct. We're not able to get it in without messing with their rules. The other thing I've talked about is if we ever had a project big enough where we're doing new drainage work, could we work with them to be able to say, because of what we're building here, it meets that mitigation? But it's definitely something we know about and something we've been working on pretty much since I came in, and my predecessor was working on that too.
Yeah, I didn't think anybody had an accident there, but still, you're thinking that, yeah. All right. One last thing is, I've noticed that there's no place in Portage where you can play basketball. So is there any idea of putting courts up anywhere?
So I got to be careful what I say because some of that's under discussion, but to put it simple, I'd love to have that either downtown, somewhere near Founders Square Park,
Right, yeah.
or another location, but it has been actively talked about.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your concern.
I know who you are, but if you don't mind stating your name, it's great to see you again.
Olga Velasquez. Just to add to the discussion about that ditch, Chief Candiano's right. The accident that I can only remember was when I was mayor, and as part of our drainage projects that we did, that was dug out, and then everybody was really afraid because now it's kind of hidden by a lot of the weeds. One of the other issues that was discussed was putting a guardrail could possibly compromise people hitting it and whoops and bouncing off into the other lane and causing a head-on collision. So that's something when you're looking at and communicating with whoever about the safety of it.
Thank you so much. And I should have noted that you were here too, thinking about it. There's even a letter from the old school superintendent I have in my possession. It's a letter from the school superintendent to Bob Goen when he was mayor. I think I pronounced that right.
Right.
And it's actually a very funny letter because it's the school superintendent complaining that at the time, that he thought the city was going to be able to fill that ditch by a certain time period, and the school system expects it. And Bob just sent a letter back that's also recorded that said, in the future, deadlines will not be an appropriate course of communication between the schools and the city, which I think was in good humor, but.
And when was he mayor? 1970s, so thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, I'll try again. Hearing none, I will close the public input. And we can move on to reports of standing committee.
Today, the Ordinance Committee met prior to our regularly scheduled council meeting. We addressed the public comment resolution, and some additional changes will be made. More discussion will be had at our next meeting, which will be next month before our regularly scheduled council meeting at 5:30 p.m. And if anybody has some additional input they'd like to add, we'd love to have you. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other standing committees at this time?
There are none.
All right. That'll get us to reports from city officials. Either of the chiefs like to come up? If you're exhausted from being in the dunk tank, I understand, because I'm exhausted, yet here I am.
Yeah, no, we got National Night Out going down the road. The turnout is fantastic, so really excited for all the city departments and everybody that's represented there. So 3 of us were in the dunk tank, so if we smell. I think the water got a little dirtier the longer we were in there, so.
I'm glad Chris went last. Thanks so much. All
Thank you,
right.
guys.
Thank you. To introduction of ordinances, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 coming up. And we've got almost 5 of you guys, so. Oh, no, wait, we got Dan now to read. Oh, I'm sorry, forgot the new policy.
I almost got away with it.
He was
All
so
right.
close, and you guys
Yeah,
are so friendly.
So close, yeah. I
All
love you
right,
all,
Dan.
council members, thanks. All right.
If you mind starting with ordinance
Yeah.
2613.
Ordinance 2613, an ordinance of the City of Portage, Indiana, amending Article 4, Property Maintenance of the City of Portage Municipal Code by adding or amending certain sections regarding dead, diseased, or dangerous trees. Let the record reflect that the ordinance has been read in its entirety. As a summary, this was one of the ordinances that was discussed at last month's ordinance committee meeting. What this ordinance does that you can review over the next month before the second reading is it adds some definitions of dangerous trees, dead trees, diseased trees, and it allows our code enforcement to visually inspect trees and start to enforce maintenance of trees on property to prevent further damage.
All right. And is that was sufficient for it to be read first, right?
Yes.
Okay. That'll get us to B, ordinance 2614, amending chapter 54, article 4, neglect premises visible to the public.
And ordinance number 2614, an ordinance of the City of Portage, Indiana, amending Chapter 54, Article 4, Section 77 and Section 78 of the City of Portage Municipal Code entitled Definitions and Neglected Premises Visible to the Public. Let the record reflect that the ordinance has been read in its entirety. By way of summary, this is the second of 3 ordinances that were heard at the committee last week and advanced out of committee. This was one that code enforcement asked me to work on. I discovered that oftentimes when code enforcement was citing for certain neglected premises, they were citing to a definition and not a duty. So I mean, you can't violate the color blue, but you can violate the rule that you shouldn't wear blue. And so we're correcting some of that in the ordinance and also on our code enforcement tickets. So again, this is something that passed out very, very quickly and positively from the ordinance committee.
Well, thank you. All right, that'll get us to C, ordinance 2615, amending chapter 42, article 2, certificate of completion.
And ordinance number 2615, an ordinance amending Chapter 42, Article 2, Section 74 of the City of Portage, Indiana, Code regarding certificate of completion requirements. Let the record reflect the ordinance has been read in its entirety. By way of summary, this is one that the planning and building departments came to me, and it was unclear as to when a certificate of completion was supposed to be required to be turned in, and it should be done at final grade. And so it was a simple 2-word switch. So instead of saying at like any improvement, it's at final grade. And so that was something requested by the Planning and Building Department. I went ahead and changed it and put it into ordinance form, and it passed out of ordinance committee with the approval to come to you.
Thank you. That'll get us to ordinance 2616, DSP PD.
And we have ordinance number 2616, an ordinance of the City of Portage, Indiana, amending Chapter 90, Article 5 of the City of Portage Municipal Code entitled Zoning Map. Let the record reflect that this has been read in its entirety. This comes to us after a recommendation of the Plan Commission.
That gets us to E, ordinance 2617, DSP PD preliminary plan approval.
And that is ordinance number 2617, an ordinance of the City of Portage, Indiana, creating a planned development overlay for the below described property pursuant to Articles 7 and 9. Let the record reflect the ordinance has been read in its entirety. This is another one that came to us from the Plan Commission with a positive recommendation or an approval.
Right.
Not an approval, a positive recommendation.
All right. So we will see these ordinances next month. That gets us to the second reading of ordinances that have already been read previously. So our first ordinance is 2608. Let's all take a deep breath. Updating and amending Article 3, firearms and ranges.
And once again, this is ordinance number 26-08, an ordinance of the City of Portage, Indiana, amending Chapter 54, Article 3 of the City of Portage Municipal Code entitled Firearms and Ranges. Let the record reflect that the ordinance has been read in its entirety.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
Okay, first of all, I would like to make a motion to remove air rifle, bows and arrows, BB guns, pellet guns, and paintball guns from this ordinance. But I have a question for Chief Candiano. Like the lady who was speaking about the neighbor shooting BB guns at her yard. Isn't there a nuisance, isn't that a nuisance issue or a vandalism issue?
So first of all, we don't make law, so we can only enforce whatever law is on the book. So I want to get that out there, that I'm not here to tell you what you should do by any means, but I can answer questions like you asked. So if there is nothing on the books as far as an ordinance, what we have to fall back on is state law. So if somebody is pointing a weapon at your house or a BB gun, however we want to, whatever terms we want to use, and they are intentionally shooting at your house, then we probably have a vandalism or some kind of a criminal recklessness charge. If they are shooting it in their backyard and it accidentally hits somebody else's house, it becomes a civil matter. It is not a police matter, and we will not be able to do anything for you. So the only things that, like I said, for the state laws, it would have to be knowingly or intentionally doing damage to your property or doing something in such a reckless manner that it caused that, if they're shooting it in the air or something like that. But if they are shooting it in their backyard and it happens to hit something and veers off and ends up in your house, that is not a criminal act.
Thank you.
Yep.
Attorney Bartnicki and Colin is I joke that you're our parliamentarian, but I just want to say, per Penny's question that she asked, can a motion be made before something else is motioned on? Like, does someone has to motion to approve first, and then somebody jumps in with an amendment, or can they amend before they motion? I apologize, I forget how that works.
Am I able to speak first before?
If you don't mind, I just want to make sure I had the question answered, but then absolutely.
The answer to that quickly, though, is you can make a motion to amend, but all of those have to be voted on before you can vote on a motion to adopt, yeah.
Got it. Okay. Gina, I apologize.
Are
Go
there
ahead.
potentially more questions coming, or you want me to stay or go?
Maybe just hang tight, Chief, just in case. Yeah. You could sit next to Wilma. She's pretty friendly. I'm sure you're friendly, too.
Okay, I don't have enough for everybody, so if you can just share, I would appreciate it. Okay, first of all, I'd like to clarify, we do have laws that allow us to pertain and carry legally, and that's not what my issue is. My issue is the BB guns, as well as pellet guns, so forth. I know people have voiced their opinions before on this, but I need to share my concern as well. And I want to start sharing some things with a couple examples. A 14-year-old boy from California died after being shot in the head with a BB gun. The incident occurred during a backyard skirmish, and the victim suffered a fatal brain hemorrhage. A 3-year-old boy in Texas was accidentally shot and killed by his 5-year-old brother. He was playing with a BB gun. The victim died from a gunshot wound to his chest. According to data collected by emergency room departments in the United States, thousands of people seek treatments for BB gun-related injuries annually. Children and teenagers represent a significant portion of these cases due to the curiosity and the lack of experience holding these devices. I want to explain velocity, FPS, feet per second. The velocity of a BB gun is a significant factor in determining its lethality. Most BB guns have a muzzle velocity of around 300 to 500 feet per second, FPS. Some high-powered models can reach speeds up to 1,000 FPS or more. For comparison, the muzzle of a velocity of a .22 caliber handgun is approximately 1,200 FPS. The faster the BB travels, the more kinetic energy it possesses, and increasing the potential for serious injury or death. I passed out some examples of BB guns, one of which is labeled, quote, Best BB Handguns of 2026. This is advertised as quoted. Umarex Glock 17 blah, blah, blah pistol, realistic training tool. If you carry a real Glock, this is the perfect training pistol. The Umarex Glocks has a full blowback action, a hefty feel, a realistic trigger pull. This isn't a toy. It's a legit training tool that feels damn close to the real deal. If you want to train in your garage or just enjoy tactical style plinking, this is the best BB pistol on the market, unquote. This gun states that it's 400 FPS, feet per second. 400 FPS is equivalent to the speed of 272 miles per hour. Some of the newer BB guns I've also found are as followed. There's a Crossman, an FPS up to 430. Umarex, FPS of 430. There's a Daisy Powerline with an FPS of up to 800. And a Benjamin Trail nitro piston, spring piston, with an FPS of up to 1500. Let me remind you that the muzzle velocity of a .22 caliber handgun is approximately 1200 FPS. If someone is shooting their BB guns in their backyard, no matter how small or how large the property is, what's to prevent, for example, your pet escapes out of your yard and runs through the neighbor's yard and is hit? Okay, another example. What happens if your child is playing ball and the ball goes into the neighbor's yard while they're shooting? Need I say more? Well, I'm going to say more. I've worked in the health field for 35 years, and I've seen a lot of things. Saying that, I feel we need to keep the BB guns, the pellets, and all the other ones on this ordinance. Just an FYI, and you mentioned earlier too, just an FYI, the iconic Red Ryder BB gun, it has an FPS of 240. Okay, we're not living in the days of the memorable Christmas story with the old, you're gonna shoot your eye out. Things have changed, and we need to change. Okay, the BB language in the ordinance needs to stay on. We're sending messages, if we take this out of the ordinance, we're sending the messages to our youth that it's okay to carry these. Okay? And how's to stop a youth from walking through Founders Square carrying their BB gun? And many of you know the situation, and I don't know if you want to explain in April, the senior assassination thing that went on. And that was a water gun. I want to keep this on the ordinance, please. Thank you.
You can, and again, I know you guys are all respectful people, but, you know, I love you both, so if you guys have a disagreement, I just hope you stay respectful, but I can't force it as mayor. I just know you.
Gina, I totally understand your concern. I get that. But I feel like you mentioned a 13-year-old child that was hit. Kids in backyards can be hit with axes, hammers. They could be hit with the neighbor's baseball. They could be hit with the neighbor's skateboard or through rough play and get injured that way too. And we can't restrict people's backyard freedoms in those ways. I don't feel like
we can help protect those freedoms. I mean, we can help protect those injuries from happening.
I feel like as a city council, if we restrict private citizens' backyard freedoms under the guise of safety, that it's government overreach. I think that if somebody does something reckless in their yard, there are legal ramifications and civil matters that can be taken up. But I do not think that it is right for us. I don't think we should even have the authority to take people's freedoms and what they do in their backyard away.
So at this point, there's no
We
motion.
take away the freedoms of growing marijuana in their backyard. There are injuries from these things that are being done, as well as damage, like you explained. We need to do our best to prevent this.
So at this point, we don't have
In
a.
fairness to the marijuana comment, though, excuse me, marijuana is illegal in the state of Indiana, so it's
Right.
not necessarily.
And that is, we've
that's
made
like-
that illegal to help protect.
Right, but that's
And that is
comparing
why
like an
I wanna
apple and a carrot, I think.
I want to protect, understandable, but I just used that, something that popped in my head. But we chose to make that legal, or the state chose it to make legal, to protect. I need to choose to keep this legal to protect. Our technology has changed a lot different from the Red Ryder gun back in the days. I mean, I grew up with the BB gun in the backyard. But technology has changed, and the danger is there.
I have a question for Councilwoman Geishurst. Do you have any examples of, so you have examples of injuries that have occurred nationally. Do you have any examples of this occurring locally?
Yes. There was pictures sent to me from a neighbor. They were laying out for the sun. There was a boy in the backyard next door shooting up at the tree towards the neighbors with 3 children playing. There was shootings where it's killed pets. There's been damage done. There's definitely been injuries, and that's just in my district. Mr. Hannon, have you received?
So I can't really add to your discussion here, but I want to explain why. So, because somebody did reach out from the public that wanted to know if we had any information. So, the way that calls are entered basically when they come in, dispatch determines, they give them a title essentially. So, we had a request for all of our reports, anything that we responded to with BB guns. There's really no way to search it. So anything that I'd be giving you would be anecdotal, something I happened to read, a report, or, so there isn't a really good way to give you hard data. Have we responded to calls of BB guns? Yes. In fact, that's what started this whole thing, was we had a resident that was upset that we were unable to enforce anything. We sent the information to our city attorney just to clarify what was in the ordinance. And as we were reading through that, we found what we believed was a loophole for, you know, we use all these different terms, but a
Discharge.
firearm, a firearm in the most typical sense of that. So when we realized that was an issue that we were concerned about, we asked for that to be addressed. So again, I'm not here to tell you what law to make. We will enforce either way, but just getting back to the BB gun thing, so it could be entered as criminal mischief, it could be entered as a suspicious person, it could be entered as miscellaneous information, it could be entered as a disturbance because somebody shot a window out and now there's a fight. So there's probably 50 different ways that BB gun could be entered, but BB gun is not a call. So yes, we've been to BB gun calls, but like I said, any information I would give you would be anecdotal. I tried to research it based on this request for information that we had, and we just don't have a system for searching, you know, every keyword that comes in for a call. So
We always appreciate the objectivity and the data, and if the data's not there, or if it's not achievable, we appreciate knowing that too.
Yep.
That's not a fault on you guys at all. for the
no, it's
reasons you
just
stated.
it's just not searchable in that.
There
type
was
of a
something
manner,
brought
so.
to my attention on behalf of the police department. What's to prevent you getting called to somebody's house and seeing someone holding a gun of any of these styles that I just passed out? His hiding around the corner, and then a police officer is approached, and he's startled, or heaven forbid, a shooting happens because of it, then you guys take the blame for it, because
And
this was
to be
allowed.
clear, and I'll have our attorney verify this, this is not an ordinance about ownership, sale, or transportation. Oh, no.
It's about using
oh,
it in your yard.
But the reason I
and
say it, when
property.
you say it there, is this is strictly about the discharge, not the
Correct.
having it.
Yeah, that's correct, and all of the recitals indicate that, including the state code that preempts any locality or municipality from regulating firearm possession, registration, or carrying does appear in the recitals of the ordinance.
And that's important because to be consistent with state law, this has nothing to do with whether or not you have one in your hand or possession or where you have it. This is about when and if you can discharge. I mean, I think the colloquial term is shoot, but discharge anything on the proposed list. And when I say proposed list, I appreciate what was done, which was it listed the things that could be to give you guys as a council the ability to review what you do and don't want on that list.
Dan, I know you drafted this. I assume you looked at what other cities have on in their code. I mean, I have been Googling this over the last couple of weeks just to see what other cities are doing. And to be honest, most cities, it pretty much mirrors exactly what is proposed. Am I correct?
Yes, so part of what was presented to the ordinance committee was, some of the research on this. And so, yes, as I was, to react to the requests that were coming in, I did compare to a lot of the surrounding communities for both firearm discharge and the discharge of weapons generally. So I will answer affirmatively, yes, this does match up pretty commonly with, there is some variance from city to city and town to town, but this is pretty much in consort with what I saw.
And just, Dan, from the ordinance committee meeting, you looked at the history of this section of the code, correct? And there was an ordinance amendment at some point in the last 20 years. We don't know where, when, because Municode only goes back so far. We'd have to find the paper records somewhere in a storage unit, wherever they are. That there was something that changed in this section of the code, but the way it is worded now, clearly there is something that was taken out either by mistake or was copy and pasted wrong because it says any, comma, and then lists just bow and arrow and paintball gun. But it defines other types of weapons above and doesn't even reference them below. Did you find anything about what might have, it looks like it might have been 2011.
So there were two sets, and when you reference the boxes, I went into the boxes and found it. So there were two different major changes. One was, I think, 2004, and I think the other was 2011, or in that area. There were several instances where different weapons, be they firearms, pellet guns, BB guns, were pulled out. So we're not the federal government. We don't have what's called legislative history, where we have a record of like what the debate was and all of that. But what we do have are the actual changes. So what was done was I cleaned up all of the definitions, and this was all discussed at the ordinance. I cleaned up all the definitions, matched the firearm definition to state law firearm, and then put everything back in that was asked of me to put back in based on various requests from, different departments or other members of the council. So that's what you see before you is everything, and now it's up to the council to figure out, does everything go forward? Do we pull something out? Again, much like, Chief Candiano, I'm your employee. So this was the result of the research. It did appear that a couple things were pulled out by what we call in law a scrivener's error, a mistake in transcription. And that just bothered me as an attorney and a nerd, but that's what I found.
If I could say really clearly, my personal view just on this situation is I think it's unfortunate that we have both let's call it the BB gun debate going on and the scrivener's error going on, because I might have certain views about both, but I definitely think the scrivener's error getting addressed is particularly important. And at the same time, you guys as a council have a very legitimate, again, I appreciate all the perspective shared on this, but at the same time, we do have the opportunity to look through all the different things that could or could not be on the list, and I trust your guys' judgment as a city council, when it comes to that. But I appreciate the scrivener's error, or what we believe to be a scrivener's error being called out or pointed out, because that is a relevant factor to what's happening here today as well.
So I do have an observation, Attorney Dan. You had mentioned that the definition for the firearm is what you looked at for the state, but I don't see that the definition of the firearm indicating that it is by means of an explosion, which is usually through gunpowder, but yet we do have an explanation of a definition for a non-firearm, which is used by the compressed gas or spring-loaded. Is there any reason why the actual definition for a firearm is nowhere that I can see?
Victoria, could you check that? I just heard a little bit of the whisper, not whisper,
Is
but
it-
it appears
It
that there-
says,
yeah.
firearm shall mean any weapon that is capable of expelling or designed to expel, or that may readily be converted to expel a projectile by means of an explosion.
Where is,
It's in the definition of firearm. Section 2.
okay, it's a little faded on my side. Thank you.
Yeah.
Apologize, I mean to cut you off. I just, when I heard that, like, maybe we can catch that.
Better format on mine. Thank you.
So at this time, we don't have any motions on the floor, I believe.
Yes, you
There
have
was a
one.
motion.
Oh, I thought you said that you asked, that you said you wanted to. So have you made it? Okay.
I hear a motion.
If
I
you don't
just
mind
heard
saying
a
it again.
discussion.
No debate, just, on whether you did, but if you don't mind doing it.
Okay.
Yeah, to see, well, to see if you get a second, if that's what you want to do.
I made a motion to remove BB gun, pellet gun, paintball gun, air rifle, and bow and arrow from the ordinance.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none? Oh, go ahead. Oh, you're, absolutely. Go ahead.
I just want to say that my heart goes to everyone. I know your feelings on this. And I'm sorry if this does pass. It breaks my heart to know.
And I just want to be clear, the code currently does not allow the discharge of paintball guns or bow and arrows. So you are now going to allow those to be discharged. They've
When
never
this
been
was
allowed.
on the
They've
ordinance.
never been allowed under city code. There is no point in time which those have been allowed. So this amendment is going to further take that out. And the only thing you won't be able to discharge is a gun, a firearm. Okay.
So for the sake of clarity, do you mind just repeating the ones you wanted removed one more time so I know too? I just didn't. Okay, is that what you said? All right. Any other discussion?
I would urge the council to vote no on the proposed amendment. Thank you.
I was going to say.
I agree.
And that was where I just want to make sure. If you don't want that to happen in this matter, you want to vote no. If you want it to happen, you want to vote yes. Sometimes when you have amendments, you want to make sure that you know which one you're going. All right, Liz, when you're ready, if you can call roll.
Councilman Alvarez.
No.
Councilwoman Weidenbach.
Yes.
Councilwoman Hurst.
No.
Councilman Parnell.
Yes.
Councilwoman Vasquez.
Yes.
Councilwoman Ambler.
Yes.
Councilman Zilli.
No.
Amendment passes 4-3.
So now we have an amended ordinance proposal.
Well, you might as well take out the entire section about discharge of weapons because it's moot.
That would be a legal question. With the firearm remaining, are there sections where severability is an issue based on this motion?
Well, no, I mean, basically, what I can do now with that amendment is call everything section 54, TAC 59, discharge of weapons, firearms, and keep everything that you see under the existing 59.5, which was going to add a new subsection, and just make that the 54 TAC 59. So now our ordinance would simply just say discharge of firearms, and what you see under 59.5 would be the entirety of the ordinance.
So in
Because
other
legally,
words-
that's what's just happened. That's what's happened, is that 54 TAC 59 is essentially inoperable with no list. So what we're voting on now is discharge of firearms, period. And I would recommend that we just call that 54-59.
So in other words,
So
They're
I
going
make
to
a
be able to
motion-
carry, hold on, I'm speaking. So in other words, these items that were taken off of this list can be taken to our parks, our Founders Square.
Hold on a second. Well, hold on. That is not the case. The park board has the ordinance that was passed by this council to set their own rules for the parks. So that is public property governed by the parks. So those can be and are not allowed in the parks. Any public property has its own rules about public property. So this ordinance is about on private property.
But
And
they can
again,
shoot it towards my private property or people in my yard.
I'm not saying that to cause any disturbance more. I'm just looking to explain that the park is a different matter.
So at this time, having heard city attorney's recommendations in the revision of the wording for the ordinance, I would like to make a motion to remove section 54-59 and to reassign section 54-59.5, discharge of firearms, instead to be section 54-59, newly revised.
So that would make this ordinance to be everything that you see under discharge of firearms. That's what will be passed.
So there's a motion on the floor, and it needs a second to get that revision done, correct, city attorney?
Yes, that's what's happening right now.
Oh,
So
I made a motion.
Second it.
I deny, I,
So if I understand it, Victoria's made a motion to match that, make it the official proposal, and Penny has seconded it.
Correct.
Dan? Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I can just pray for the neighbors.
So hearing no further discussion, Liz, if you can call roll.
Councilman Alvarez.
No.
Councilman Councilwoman Whitebach.
Yes.
No.
Councilman Parnell.
Yes.
Councilwoman Vasquez.
Yes.
Councilwoman Ambler.
Yes.
Councilman Zilli.
No.
It passes 4-3.
So now, as I understand it, Attorney Dan, now we can make a motion on the revised ordinance.
no, I mean, no, my opinion is that's what's passed. So
Well-
now,
Oh, now it's a proposal
No.
because we still don't,
There was never a motion to adopt.
right.
Yeah.
That
We need
she
a
just
motion to
amended to change it.
And the
just,
Because-
okay, I'm sorry, I was confused. I'm sorry.
Part, motion to adopt with the revisions as entered.
I also want to be clear, so there were other definitions in the code existing, Dan, because you're adding definitions to this section. Which ones were, what was the original amendment?
The original amendment.
So,
Right, which ones were removed? I want to be clear. Was it just the ones that we're looking at in this draft ordinance that we're considering? Pellet guns, paintball guns, BB guns, or was it everything else that was already in the code?
no, what I heard from the motion was that it was paintball, pellet, air rifle, BB gun, bow and arrow, all of the above.
Okay.
So now we have not- there's been
we
no-
just, out of nowhere, voted on something that wasn't even in an ordinance presented to the city council because we removed bows and arrows and airsoft gun, or air rifles, which aren't even in here, by the way, because they were already defined. So the council just, on second reading, went into the code and completely removed something from the code that the public had no knowledge was even proposed. To be clear, that just happened. Wasn't even proposed. Wasn't in the original draft, wasn't in the draft last month, wasn't in the draft that just got put in front of us. The council just went into the code and removed two things that were never even proposed to be removed. There was no debate on that. There was no discussion on that. The public had no chance to input on that.
If this passes, that would be the effect.
Exactly. I'm just pointing that out, that amendment went into the code and removed things that weren't even in this ordinance as presented to the council.
If I could ask a clarification question on that, to either Dan or Colin, I think that the list proposed included the bows and arrows and the paintball guns.
It did, but what
Yeah.
I'm saying is the ordinance as drafted didn't define those. It just added new definitions. So the ordinance that we all just looked at over the last 2 months never considered removing bow and arrow or air rifle or adding them to the code. They were already banned, to be clear. That was already in the code. So the council just unilaterally, at a meeting on a random Tuesday night without any discussion, any pre-notice to the public, just removed these from the city ordinance by amendment. And now we're going to vote on that, vote on an ordinance that we don't even have in front of us to remove those. We don't even have the
only thing that was
text of removing
presented
those in front of us.
and discussed was the BB guns being removed, and that is the statistics. I can even
Well,
find even more
BB gun-
statistics of the
Just
other
out
things
of
being
nowhere,
removed
that's what the council just
from this
did.
list.
Without ever having it written in front of us. We don't have a new updated ordinance that says we're removing these other things. There was no discussion about it. It was just a motion to amend, a second, and a vote on it.
So again, I'm asking for clarification, so I understand what's being said. This was not originally written, what you guys initially had before the amendment. It was not something that took BB guns out. It was to put BB guns in, along
Right, it
with
was
the
to
other
add
ones.
pellet gun, add paintball gun, add BB gun alongside air rifles and bow and arrow, which clearly was already in the code.
believe it was-
Which was clearly removed at some point with a weird Scrivener's error that we're now dealing with. And the council just voted to add things back into an ordinance, and we didn't even have that draft ordinance in front of us.
However, there
And I
is the
was
generic, there is the generic term in here that says shall mean any gun or device. So whether or not that or device was defined
Right, I
by
just want to
calling
be
it.
clear that tonight, bow and arrow wasn't even part of this discussion until just now, and has just now been removed from the code.
And I was asked the question.
Was never
if
under
there was-
consideration in this ordinance. Y'all just added it in out of nowhere without any discussion or any notice to the public.
But if it is another device and somebody was shooting a bow and arrow, it would fall under this term or device.
Right, but the motion was to remove all of
Correct.
those things from the code.
And I had the question asked if there was any local incidents, and that was just BB guns that I was under the impression. Doing what I do, I seen a bow and arrow, the arrow went through somebody's skull, and they
Yeah,
had to
like-
cut the end of the arrow off to get them into the ambulance.
That's,
So,
I mean,
yes,
that's
there
exactly,
are
I mean,
injuries
Gina, to
in
your
this
point, like,
area.
the ordinance was written to amend and said discharge of weapons generally, it shall be unlawful for any person to discharge any paintball gun, pellet gun, air rifle, BB gun, or bow and arrow, or other compressed gas or spring-loaded weapon within the city limits. Bow and arrow was already in the code, air rifle was already in the code. It wasn't like it was added to this ordinance, it was already a banned practice.
I believe it was the bow and arrow and the paintball gun that was already in the code.
Or paintball gun, but
Well,
we
well,
also
well, no, it's-
weirdly defined air rifle in the code for no apparent reason.
And that actually is the
Yeah.
main issue with the code as written. And as noted, and that's the main thing for me, since at least 2011, but maybe sooner, there hasn't been the word actual firearm gun.
Oh,
in
right,
the
yeah,
code.
I'm
Yeah.
with you. It's been completely legal since at least 2011 to just shoot off a gun as long as it's not reckless.
And that's where, for me, and again, I understand how passionate this is, totally. Speaking,
Look,
oh yeah.
we can all have our debates about gun rights in this country, but the council literally just unilaterally changed city code with no input from the public. None, zero. You just decided to take something that was already in the code and just take it out of the code.
As opposed to
We can't
not
shoot off
put something-
fireworks in our yard. There are ordinances on that after 4th of July, but we can shoot these things off.
So that's why I'm going to vote no on this ordinance. I mean, the process was just completely bungled.
So as it stands right now, I understand it right now, the current code in the city, if you're following the code as it stands right now, It is, at this moment that I speak, it is against city code to shoot a bow and arrow in your backyard, and it is against city code right now to shoot a paintball gun in your backyard. It is not illegal right now to shoot a gun in your backyard, and there's nothing else you can't shoot in your backyard.
Or your front yard. I mean,
or
there's
your
nothing
front
that
yard.
says anything about
I know,
backyard or
this-
private property in the code.
This is
It
true.
just says it within the city limits.
The
You can shoot
discharge.
it wherever you
Oh.
want on your property.
For sure,
Yeah.
unless someone else has property and,
And
says
it's
don't do
not
that.
like by doing this, we're just limiting it to the backyard.
I
It just
get
says
that.
city limits. There's nothing that says you can't do it in your front yard if you wanted to.
And there isn't anything that doesn't say that this can't be reviewed again down the road either.
Oh, sure, okay, yeah, we'll definitely be coming back to
You
this.
just passed it. How
Yes,
can we-
but this was
It's not-
also passed years ago, a different version of it. So any ordinance that is on the
No,
books
they just
can-
stated that it's been on this ordinance.
Okay, but any ordinance
just
can be
revised the whole
reviewed
thing.
and reviewed and
Without even letting
revisited
us
years
know
or
that you were
months
gonna
or
revise
weeks down
those
the road.
sections.
Any time that somebody wants to come to the ordinance committee and bring a revision or an idea does not mean that this is concrete and it will never, ever, ever in the next 100 years ever be revised again or revisited. So in 20 years or 10 years, this may be revisited again with a new concept. We may have
does.
new
That could be
things in
literally
here.
said about anything that the city council does ever.
Exactly. So-
That's not a reason to do it.
No, but
You could say that about literally anything we do. We decide to change the salary ordinance 1 month to pay a person one thing, we can come back and do it again and just get rid of the position. There's nothing that stops us from doing that. I mean, that's not a reason to do something. Oh, well, you know, you can come back in a year and do it differently if you want.
No, but if there is
And is it going to
reason
take
of-
somebody getting injured by one of those guns in order for somebody to want to
All right,
revise?
I think we've talked about
Yeah,
this
I
enough.
think
Let's just
that-
vote on it.
To put it really simply, and just be clear to anybody watching, as of right now, until this vote, you cannot shoot a paintball gun and you cannot shoot a bow and arrow. This shifts it where, based on what's currently been proposed, if this passes, you can no longer shoot a real gun, but the bow and arrow and the paintball gun are off, is what's happening materially. I don't know if there's been an actual motion to adopt this. Did
There
that-
was.
And there was a second? All right. Then Liz, you can call roll.
You know what, who made the motion? Was it,
I made a motion to adopt and Penny second.
want to make sure I got it straight.
And I clearly said no.
We're voting on the motion now to adopt, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Attorney, you agree?
Yes.
Councilman Alvarez?
No.
Councilwoman Weidenbach?
Yes.
Councilwoman Hurst?
Absolutely no.
Councilman Parnell?
Yes.
Councilwoman Vasquez?
Yes.
Councilwoman Ambler?
Yes.
Councilman Zilli?
No.
The motion passed, the ordinance passed. 4-3.
So at this point, you can no longer shoot a gun in Portage within city limits. The rest is dischargeable. All right. That'll get us to ordinance 2609, amending zoning ordinance. Attorney Bartnicki.
Ordinance number 26-09, an ordinance of the City of Portage, Indiana, amending Chapter 90, Article 2 and Article 3 of the City of Portage Municipal Code entitled Zoning. Let the record reflect that this ordinance has been read in its entirety.
I would like to make a motion to amend this for the noise ordinance from not to exceed 55 decibels instead of 65 decibels. And for the height restrictions, not to exceed 65 feet instead of 75 feet.
Second.
So we have a motion and we have a second. Any discussion?
So if these proposed changes are made, will that make it more difficult to build a data center in Portage, or will it make it easier? And/or is there a procedure for changing that?
It's a very good question, Councilman Alvarez. So as an ordinance overall, even with what just got proposed here, this would make it in my opinion, much more difficult to build a data center, or at least the type of data center that most people, and most people as if, there's guys walking around with suitcases, you know what I mean, are trying to build. What this does is it creates a data center use in our code. Up until this point, a data center has legally been considered a warehouse in our city. So any place that you have a zoning that allows for warehouses or a PD that allows for warehouses, you're able to build a data center. Now, to be clear, that's within the regulations of that zoning classification. And of the 4 zoning classifications where you can currently build a warehouse, that's a heavy industry, light industrial, business park, and marina waterway. And then, of course, the Ameriplex data center comes from the warehouse use that was in the Ameriplex zoning district. With this having its own use now being created, because if the council votes this way, they've defined it, having a place where you can build warehouses no longer means a place where you can build data centers. Without any property having this zoning, anyone trying to build a data center would have to come to the council with their petition for a rezone, which means they would go through the plan commission and they would go to the council, and you guys would have the ability to either vote yes or no. You also have the ability to vote yes with conditions. So any of the rules within here, and this, I hope this leads into the question you asked, and maybe leads into this too. Any petition for a zoning change, you guys also have the ability to put extra conditions on it as a condition for a zoning change, depending on how reasonable that is, or if the petitioner wants it, they might agree. An example I've given to the public is a decommissioning plan. Like, I'm a big believer personally that if you've got a data center, it should have to have a plan and a setup of how you're going to decommission it if it goes out of business. We didn't put that directly in this code because we were concerned about the legal enforceability and if a court could rule against that in the future. If we can prove enforceability, I think that would be a good amendment to this code later. So going to the sound and the height, which it's currently listed in this proposal as 75 for the height and 65 for the sound, this is the spot that I think speaks to your question. So if you don't mind, I'll start with the height. If we have a code that says that the max height is 75, that fits within the range of a 2-story data center. If somebody were to come to you guys and say they want a data center, and let's say that you're raving about it, Ferdinand, like you think this thing is the best thing around, as I'm sure you might. No, it would depend on the situation. You'd have the ability to say, as a councilman, I think that this is a good location, but I'm concerned that the height is too high for this area, and you could make a contingency to say, I want it to be smaller, and then if the developer agrees, they could go down to what you agreed to. If you lower the height requirement as presented here, so let's go with what got motioned here, going from 75 to 65, I think it's reasonable to think that eventually, assuming there's a data center that you guys approve through this ordinance, they might go to the BZA and say, hey, we'd like to make our case that we need to be 75. I don't think you'd have to worry about the BZA letting them go to 100 feet or maybe even 80 feet, but there's some wiggle room to go to the BZA that isn't necessarily going to be as much wiggle room, in my opinion, and that's strictly my opinion. I can't predict all that in the future, but I feel like if you're comfortable with the 65, I would say it matches other light and heavy industrial, because the tallest thing you can build right now in our zoning code is 70 with the heavy industrial. So 65 won't kill this. With the sound, going from 65 to, Penny, was it 55? I think that 55 is about the lowest you could go if you want to set it, because anything lower than 55, you're going lower than what we approve for a residential house, which can get a little bit tough to tell a business you got to be quieter than a house. But they are capable of going that low. I put 65 with the help of our attorneys when we put this together, because most commercial and industrial properties in our city have a decibel limit of 66. I thought 65 just sounded a bit better, not just because it was one lighter, but that same kind of BZA test kind of came to mind. But I also think it's reasonable that if somebody was approved and they had it at 55, maybe going to the BZA and saying we need to go up to 60 might not be so bad, if that makes sense. So I would leave that up to the judgment of the council about whether or not you guys feel that those restrictions give you the most authority over a rezone, or if you're comfortable with the BZA taking on some wiggle room.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Right now, if somebody John Doe owns commercial property, and Jack Jones comes in and says, hey, I'm going to give you X amount to sell your property to me. and they can turn it into a data center. With this ordinance, we can prevent that. It has to go through us, correct?
That is absolutely correct, except, and to be clear, and again, I know that what you mean is non-residential property when you say commercial.
Commercial.
For me to be specific.
Because right now, it can't.
Yeah, and for the record, you didn't say anything wrong, but for me to clarify, John Doe was the seller, right?
Yeah.
John Doe would have. I
And
love you
Jack
to
Doe
death,
was
yeah.
the company coming in.
John Doe would have to own land that's zoned heavy industrial, light industrial, business park, or marina waterway for Jack Doe to be able to make that deal, but yes, they would.
And we would have no say-so in it.
That's correct. Now,
And creating this helps us to prevent, from.
as long as it's built to the standards of that zoning, then you would have no say-so in it.
Legally, think of this as tools. Again, this is an excellent discussion at the Plan Commission. What this ordinance would do is add to the toolbox of Portage for the ways in which we can engage and discuss with a future company that comes to us with a petition. And so while it may not be 100% perfect, it is absolutely adding to our tools to engage and make sure that any petition is the best that we can get it, should that petition come.
And Gina, if you don't
So
mind.
we can have a say-so then, when we hear our residents agree or disagree, we can vote for them with this ordinance, correct?
That is 100% correct. And Gina, if you don't mind me elaborating, I don't know if this fits within your question, but if you don't mind. In order to have a legitimate zoning classification, you can't just have one use in it. So there was somebody who asked me, in a very friendly way, why this isn't called a data center, zoning. Well, the answer to that is, and I don't mean this to be too funny, the same reason that heavy industrial isn't called steel mill zoning. It allows you to encompass what goes into it. And the reason why that matters is that you can't have a zoning classification that only has one use in it, because you're restricting a property so much you run into issues of exclusionary zoning. So the other things that you'll see that are available that you could build within this zoning if you want it are things that can, with the exception of a data center, because what this ordinance does is it says that a data center can only be in this technology campus zoning. The other things in this zoning classification are things that you could build in industrial, light industrial, or business park already, depending on what they are. But that if they wanted to, and I don't necessarily know if they wanted to, a petitioner could ask for them in the technology campus zoning if they're willing to follow all of the regulations that are in the technology campus zoning. The only thing I would give as advice to the city council ahead of time is, if anybody ever comes and says, we want the technology campus zoning because we're building a semiconductor or a pharmaceutical lab, you guys also have the ability to scratch your chins and say, wait a second, I might like this idea, but I'm concerned that if the pharmaceutical lab goes out of business, what happens if he then sells it to a data center? If someone's making a petition like that and you don't believe a data center was ever a good idea in that property's future, but they're proposing something else that fits in this classification, you can also have the petitioner be required to sign a written commitment that takes the data center use out. So that if you were to.
And this prevents companies or so forth maneuvering around the classifications you stated earlier.
Yes,
So
but it's
this is
important that we stay on our toes with it, though. Yes.
But I want to make sure our residents understand that we're doing this, if so, to protect them and listen to their rights.
Yeah, I mean, to
Thank
put it
you.
really simply, and I'm sorry, Victoria, I know you want to say something too. I can't speak for everybody because there's a lot of people that don't want a data center, period. And to be fair, there's a lot of people that don't want coffee shops, period. And every time they see a coffee shop getting built, they come to me and they say, how can you let that happen? And I have to say, I can't stop it. It's private property already zoned for a coffee shop. Now, that said, that's currently true of data centers with 4 different zoning classifications. There are properties in the city where if somebody got all their ducks in a row to build a data center on it without this ordinance passed, they could just do it and we'd watch it just like we watch, what's the new one coming, 7 Brew?
Yeah.
And for the record, happy for 7 Brew. But if you're not, we're in the same situation with the data center there. This allows it that for a topic that is as new, or I should say an industry as new as this allows residents to always be able to come and voice their concerns to you. Here's the other thing I'll say. I won't pick on coffee shops. I'll pick on the other thing that everyone thinks we have too much of, gas stations. If there's a corner property that someone buys, and let's say it's zoned residential, but somebody wants to build a gas station on it, they might come to you guys for a zoning change, and there might be people here that don't want a gas station built, and they might tell you to vote no on that zoning change. But nobody coming and saying no is coming because they don't know what a gas station is. If somebody were to come up and say, I don't know how tall a gas station's gonna be, could you tell me? Having a gas station is something that's defined and put into our code where you know what it is, allows the public to make an informed, not just decision, but decision on what they want to tell you guys. A lot of times what's happened with data centers in other communities in Indiana and elsewhere is that when somebody's proposed them, people come and ask questions that I think are very reasonable, like how tall is it going to be, or how much land are they going to use, what's the water system? And the developer often says, we don't know yet, we're just trying to figure out if we can get permission to build. I think that creates a lot of stress as well. Some people are always against data centers, and so if there's ever a proposal, those people are going to come and probably tell you guys always say no. Some people might be against it in some cases, not others, but if they have no information on what the rules are, they're probably going to always be against. This gives you guys yeah.
Can you please clarify, though, that if this ordinance goes through and a company comes in on all of those requirements that we do or do not change, we still have the right to
You
say no?
absolutely can say no, because
Thank
as
you.
the city council, you guys decide ultimately what's appropriate zoning for an area. Someone might say that they'll follow all the rules, and you might believe them, but at the end of the day, you decide what is appropriate zoning for an area.
And then to be clear, the reduction in the height, that is actually to the pitch of the rafter of the building versus the ceiling. So somebody can't build a building to the ceiling height of 65 and then add another 10-foot pitch to it, correct?
So that's correct either way, but that was my original reason for thinking 75, because I'm familiar with another community where somebody said they were going to present something 65, and then when they came to that community's plan commission, it was 75, and they got into a big aggressive debate about whether or not the roof counted. We don't have that issue in Portage, but in context of basically, if you guys bring it down to 65, a company could hypothetically go to the BZA and say, we want that extra 10 feet for what you just said. To put it simply, that's kind of up to you guys of if that's worth the risk. I don't mind, but I wanted to start at 75 to give you guys the most control.
Thank you.
So I have a question regarding potential bans or moratoriums, right? Because there are communities that are banning outright the construction of data centers. And say, for example, today, we're doing things a bit unorthodox. So say I just make a motion right now and I say, let's just ban all data centers. Apparently we could do that, right? And so what would stop that from happening? And why shouldn't that just be put on the floor today? Because that's what we do.
From a zoning perspective in Indiana, it is essentially impossible to actually ban anything. I'm aware of 2 counties in Indiana that have stated that they have bans, and those are already being debated about whether that could hold up in a court. And to put it really simply, a ban or something that you call a ban and claim you can do can be challenged by court. And if we were to lose that, we'd be back to where we are now. Whereas what communities effectively do is you use zoning to put something in a category where then you decide when you want to extend that category. I have used the example, and I don't intend it to be humorous, but it is true. We have one zoning classification in our city where a strip club is approved. But since at least 1994, and I don't know the history past 1994, every time that a petitioner has come with that request for a zoning classification, the Plan Commission has gone to the City Council and asked them to sign a commitment to take out that use from that zoning classification. If somebody has ever asked me if that's banned in Portage, I would say no, but I think it is safe to say that the City Council has never determined that there's an appropriate place for that. I think that that is legally safer. If your goal is to keep a data center out and know that it is legally defensible, the best thing is to have it in a zoning classification and then exercise your judgment about whether that zoning classification is ever appropriate somewhere under a proposal, or to consider if there's a proposal for something else in that zoning classification to take that out when you do the zoning change.
So that leads to my next question. There's a lot of unknowns, right, as far as data centers. And so if we table this, right, so that our city council can have more time to learn about all the pros and cons, will that affect any current proposals or any
It definitely could, because if you guys table it, the time that it takes to table, someone could apply for a site plan, and if someone applies for the site plan, they are grandfathered in by that process. I totally understand wanting to continue to explore and add more regulations to it, and not to compare it to what happened in the previous vote, because again, I want to respect the sensitivities for that, but at the same time, my recommendation is to pass this, so you're immediately taking the use out of properties in the city, and then by all means, either by special committee or asking the Plan Commission to consider additional regulations on this that could be added into the code, I'd be fine with that. Something I'd also point out, and I think that this is the first proposal in Indiana, although I don't know for sure, I've tried asking around, we don't just define a data center in this proposed ordinance, we define a hyperscale, and at a standard set by either or 50 megawatts of power, or by a total of 500,000 square feet for the whole spot. If you exceed that, it's required to go for a planned development, which means that a person or a company trying to build a hyperscale under this ordinance actually has two, I don't know if barrier is the right word, but challenges. The first one is they would have to go through the process of getting a zoning change for this technology campus. Then they would have to go through the secondary process of getting custom rules made for it that then come back to you guys for a second meeting. And I think that that is a pretty strong rule that we've put in that I don't believe any other community has. The difference there is that there is no state definition of a hyperscale, and there's really no industry definition. You won't find two engineers that agree on that, or maybe you won't find four. But by us putting a legal definition in there, we add an extra layer of protection.
And if we propose a ban and our friends on the council agree and we become the subject of legal action, will our city attorney be the one representing us in court and addressing this issue in litigation?
Usually that would be our insurance provider, unless they can't insure us. But like I say, the trouble with the ban is you really can't ban anything in Indiana. I would bet that we would lose, compared to we know that if we create this zoning classification, and I don't want to presume your position on data centers, despite my somewhat hopefully charming joke earlier, right? If you don't believe that there's an appropriate place for a data center in our city, the safest legally defensible way is to put it in a zoning classification, along with other things, and if you don't believe there's ever an appropriate spot, you're not banning it. You are just never finding that appropriate spot. But you're leaving room the opportunity for someone to convince you, which means we don't have a ban.
And the current technology park center, basically it's the Ameriplex. It's where the, Amazon data center is currently located, which I voted against the tax abatement several years ago. Just want to add that to the record. Is there enough room there for more buildings? I mean, I would assume yes, but I don't believe so, just based on what the Ameriplex has told us in the room that they have. And I don't want to presume, but based on the rules in here, I mean, it wouldn't fit based on the rules set up here if I had to guess, given the fact that that has a 60-foot setback, I believe, from the data center and people's homes. This requires a 500-foot setback for a non-hyperscale, which the one in the Ameriplex is also a non-hyperscale. Think about the space that you need in order to make that work. So this will be my last statement. I know you're a movie quote enthusiast, as am I. So this would kind of be like Prince whatever in Cinderella having a glass slipper that's too small for anyone really to put their foot in, but knowing that it's too small and that really it wouldn't fit. I mean, is that somewhat fair?
I think that there are areas of the city where if somebody were to buy enough land and commit to putting all that land together in order to make either a non-hyperscale or a hyperscale, you'd be able to achieve this if you got the city council to say yes. But there's some legwork that would be involved in most cases. But to use your example too, so it's the shoe and it needs to fit, right? And is there anybody around where the shoe fits? Ultimately, it's the city council that decides if the shoe fits, but the rules you'd have to follow within that still need to be followed, or you'd have to go through that second step of doing a planned development, which also means coming back to the city council, and then you guys can decide if the planned development fits or not.
One more observation I'd like to just point out, with the reduction in the decibels from 65 to 55, that currently the 55 decibel condition is similar to what a residential housing is. So for those who have concerns that if a data center were to ever be built, that it would be too loud, too noisy, but this is, as Attorney Bartnickney had indicated, is a tool in our toolbox by reducing that to 55 as if it was like another residential house being built, correct?
Like I say, I think that you don't want to go lower than 55 because you're putting in the notion that you're making it too hard to achieve. To go back to Councilman Alvarez's standpoint, just as you can't ban things, if you make things so strict that it's completely impossible, that runs into issues too. But I think that 55 works, especially because 55 does create some room for the BZA to also give some changes. If there was, and I'm not saying there is, well, let's just look around the country. A data center next door to a steel mill might be able to be a little bit noisier than a data center next to somebody's home. So I don't think 55 is inappropriate, but I wanted to explain why we put 65 at the start when this was initially proposed. We do have a motion and a second, is that correct? Or was it just a motion?
For the motion, a second.
Amendment.
For the amendment.
Is there any other discussion on that?
I mean, I'll just point out the obvious. We're going to do this, and the likelihood is the state is going to step in and take away local control. Just putting that out there. That is a very strong likelihood from down in Indy.
I'll reserve, but I'll have something to say about that at the end, no matter how this
Like a
goes.
scary thing.
Go ahead, when you're ready, Liz.
Councilman Alvarez.
Yes?
Councilwoman Weidenbach.
Yes.
Councilwoman Hurst.
Yes.
Councilman Parnell.
Yes.
Councilwoman Vasquez.
Yes.
Councilwoman Ambler.
Yes.
Councilman Zilli.
Yes.
Passed. And we need a motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All right, hearing none. Liz, if you can call roll.
Councilman Alvarez.
Yes.
Councilwoman Weidenbach.
Yes.
Councilwoman Hurst.
Yes.
Councilman Parnell.
Yes.
Councilwoman Vasquez.
Yes.
Councilwoman Ambler.
Yes.
Councilman Zilli.
Yes.
Motion passed.
All right. I'll just kind of add to what Colin said. I'm very concerned that the state is going to be moving away from local control on this issue. And now that we've passed this, I'll say, I don't know if there's an appropriate place in Portage for a data center. I'm not anti-data center myself. I do use them. I also understand that just because you make use of them on social media or credit cards or whatever doesn't mean that you should be okay with building them anywhere and everywhere. I drive a steel car. That doesn't mean that I think that a steel mill is appropriate behind everybody's backyard. I think that moving in the direction that we have as a city of Portage creates an opportunity for someone to be able to come and try to prove to this city council, if they ever want to, that they have an appropriate place or a way to make it work. But it gives the city council the ability to say no and push back on that if that's not good for our community. In the event that the legislature were to move towards taking away local control on this issue, I'll be, as much as anybody wants me on the front lines, arguing for local control because we need it. This shouldn't be something that the state should be pushing on us, simply put. And I think that by the action you guys have taken here today, we've demonstrated that there's something better than a state takeover. So thank you. And that gets us to Ordinance 2610, amending salary ordinance.
Salary ordinance for budget year 2026, ordinance number 26-10, an ordinance establishing the amount of salaries and compensation to be paid to all appointed employees and officers of the City of Portage, Porter County, Indiana for the year 2026. Let the record reflect that the ordinance has been read in its entirety.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And that passed. We have no resolutions. Liz, I don't want this meeting to take any longer than it needs, but we have other matters considered by council and matters not already considered by council. Is there a difference between the two?
I will let Attorney Bartnickney explain that one, because I questioned that too, and we when we were revising our agenda.
Every once in a while, there is a possibility that somebody has something new that has not been considered before. So that would be any matter not already considered by the council. And if there is something that was considered and we need to bring it up, that would be another matter considered by the council. It's semantics, but
I would just take that opportunity to ask a question that I saw on social media regarding the Parks Department and cashless transactions from here on out in the parks. Can someone just clarify what that means, just for people watching at home?
Yeah, so anything that you're spending money on for the park, per that policy, if it's registering for a sport, if it's buying tickets for the beer garden, if we ever sell park water bottles, that's a cashless policy where you're using the tapper, or the tap, I think you can plug it in. If you are a vendor who's using the park, you absolutely can use cash. So Market on the Square, for example, the only place that you wouldn't be able to use cash by policy, for example, would be the beer garden ticket purchases. But then using cash elsewhere would be up to the individual vendor. Liz, unless I forgot something that we also sell at Market on the Square?
Also, the events being held at Woodland Park, any of them, as far as we're looking at doing the rental of the halls, all cashless also.
So if you wanted to rent, so when you get married one day, Ferdinand, and you want to book Woodland Park for your wedding, you can't just show up with a suitcase full of cash to pay the rental. You could use a check or you could use your credit card.
Thank you.
Almost smiling at that one. Sorry. Any other matters? And if not, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Cool.